Good morning, everybody. I hope you had a good journey getting here. And winter's approaching, obviously. It's getting colder. Anyway, let's start. Do we have any apologies? Beston, I suppose.
Yeah, we have an apology from Councillor Beston, who's asked you to substitute on his behalf, but that's all.
You see who got spanned at early hours this morning. Okay. Minutes of the last meeting. I wasn't here. Thank you. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Jonathan. Okay, seems to be fine. What else have we got? Any declarations of interest? That's okay. What's the next one? No, and no urgent business was brought up, was it? No, okay, right. So we shall carry on. The procedure for this morning is that we will hear evidence from the applicants and from the objectors as well, and what your various issues are, and you will promote your cafe and you will raise your concerns, and then we will retire along with our lawyers, and then make a decision basically, and come back to you both. I hope that's okay. All right. Okay. We get to the right one. Okay. Right. I've got one. Okay. Right. Can I ask the licensing officer to summarise, please? Yeah.
This is an application for a premises licence made by the Waldridge Partnership for the Bay Cafe, Madeira Road, Tottenham Bay. The premises is a two-storey venue located on the beachfront. The upstairs is used predominantly for dining and downstairs is for kitchen, access to the pier and bathrooms. The application requests that authorisation be granted to allow the supply of alcohol to take place for consumption on and off the premises between 9 AM and 11 PM each day. No other licensable activities are being sought. The application was originally received on the 7th of August 2023 and the consultation ran for the required period. However, unfortunately, at the end of the consultation, an administrative error was identified in respect of the blue notice that had been displayed, and as a result, it was necessary for a new consultation to commence. This ended on the 11th of October. There were no representations made by any of the responsible authorities during the consultation. The police licensing officer has reviewed the application and has recommended a number of conditions. These have been agreed by the applicant and can be found at Appendix 2. If a licence is granted, these conditions will be attached. In relation to the representations from other persons, 9 were received throughout the consultation process. These can be found at Appendix 3 to the report. Some of the representations received contain references to issues that do not directly relate to the licensing objectives, and these issues cannot be taken into account when determining the application. For ease of reference, any part of a representation that contains such references has been redacted. Whilst 2 of the objectors do acknowledge the benefits that a family-friendly cafe will bring to the area, it appears to be the off-licence aspect of this application that is causing the most concerns. Those who have submitted representations believe that a consequence of the grant of a premises licence will lead to an increase in litter, including broken glass, noise and antisocial behaviour and criminal behaviour. Concerns have also been raised in relation to a lack of parking and an increase in traffic on the road leading to the seafront, which they perceive to be dangerous. The applicant was notified of the objections received and in response produced a statement which can be seen at Appendix 4. This statement, along with a list of agreed police conditions, was sent to each person who had made representations. They were asked to advise if this information had alleviated their concerns and whether they wished for their representations to stand. One objector withdrew at this point. A further concern that has been raised relates to the issue of traffic and parking. Residents are concerned that due to limited parking on the seafront, customers will park illegally or trespass on private parking facilities. This is not something that members can factor into their determination, as enforcement of parking violations is a matter for the Parking Services Department of the local authority. The applicant has stated that they are currently putting together a traffic management plan that will hopefully eliminate any issues with noise and car congestion down at the entrance of the pier. This includes working with local taxi firms to ensure a service can be provided when required. Members are advised that the premises to which this application relates has already been licensed for the same hours and activity that is being applied for now. In February 2020, a licence was granted permitting the sale of alcohol to take place on and off the premises between the hours of 9 AM and 11 PM each day. Details of the internal and external CCTV camera design layout was submitted by the applicant last week and has been circulated to all parties in advance of today's hearing. Representatives of the Waldridge Partnership are here today, and they in turn are being represented by Mr. Elton of College Place Chambers. Miss Proles is here as an objector, and she will be speaking on behalf of herself, Miss Sale and Mr. Walbank. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Anyone?
No questions from the applicant.
Could I ask you to put your case? Sorry?
Chair, could I ask one quick question?
Go on.
So just for clarification, you referred to previous license. Has that expired? Because that seems to be exactly the same terms as what is being applied for. Has that expired? That's surrendered? Okay, thank you very much. That makes it clear.
Okay. Could I just ask, was that because of a change of ownership? Well, yeah, I suspected that was.
Chair, yes, it's something I will be addressing in my short
Okay.
remarks to you.
Okay. Right. Please go ahead.
These remarks have been reduced to writing. I hope everyone has that. It's a speaking note, not new evidence. The Bay Cafe opened in June 2021 under the original ownership, and that license, as you heard, was in place until January of this year. But in fact, what had happened is that there'd been a sale in November of last year to the Waldridge Partnership. And perhaps the most important point to note is that we are not asking for anything new, and we do not anticipate that anything new will be the result if you grant the license as sought, because you have in the very full and very helpful report from your own licensing officer the lack of incidents in the previous iteration of the license. Neither are we looking for anything new by way of a license, nor are we expecting there to be any change in the pattern of use of the premises. So if you want, the probation service are very fond of saying the best indicator of future behaviour is past behaviour. So what we're asking is for a continuation of what clearly worked and was very well loved before. What you have is a new ownership that is putting £2 million of their own money into this venture. So it's not a fly-by-night, let's see if this works. It is a serious commitment, and it's a serious commitment that knows that any failure by them to abide by the conditions that you set is likely to result in that £2 million being wasted, because you could just revoke the license. And you can have faith that there are not amateurs trying their arm at this. When you come to think of, first of all, the Waldridge Partnership itself, formed in 2018, it's a hospitality business that owns and operates a retail park, a golf club, a farm shop, a garden centre, a florist's, and 3 restaurants. They're not new to this. Their senior leadership team has hospitality experts, award-winning experts. And most important for you is that this premises is going to be managed by Lucy Whittington, who sits beside me. She started working in hospitality at 14, working in the kitchens. The time that she has not been working in hospitality was when she was studying hospitality and events management at university. So her entire adult life has been spent in hospitality. She hasn't scrubbed by at the fringes. She's worked at the Ritz in London. She's worked at events management companies, a Christmas party and wedding company where the stakes are extraordinarily high, both in terms of getting customer satisfaction and abiding by every rule going. She understands what it takes to run a premises. And this is what will be her sole focus. She's not doing this and 7 other things. This will be her full-time job. She understands that Tottenham Bay Pier is a piece of local history, and the applicant is aware that the venue not being used at the moment is what has drawn the antisocial behaviour from young people, because it's an empty premises. It's not being used. Of course, they will melt away immediately if you were to grant this license, because they're the one category of people that are not going to be served. She understands completely about issues from none of the objections is vexatious. Everyone wants to continue the status quo that they have been enjoying, but so does the applicant. And the one bit that we can deal with completely is removing the antisocial behaviour, because at a stroke, there's an extraordinarily comprehensive CCTV plan that is part of that £2 million. That will mean that anybody up to no good in the vicinity, not in the premises, but outside it and beyond the licensable areas, will be picked up on CCTV. It's terribly good quality nowadays. It'll be retained, of course. And in terms of the applicant, I should say, you know how reactive they are and will continue to be to any incidents or local or pressures, because the one statutory party that came in with any kind of comment at all was the police. And they said, we would require these conditions. So in a bristly and unpleasant way, the applicant said, okay, immediately. When the objectors' original objections were served on the applicant said, right, we can deal with this in this way, we can deal with that in that way. At no stage have they said, don't care. They are going beyond what is required in law and procedure. And even unlicensable things like traffic flow, it's a valid consideration. But that's why they are working, firstly, with local cab firms, and secondly, to sort out some sort of a shuttle so that parking, first of all, simply isn't an issue, because anyone who's coming up can just get a shuttle up. And also, in terms of the traffic itself, a driver coming up for the first time, someone from the mainland like me, perhaps, who didn't know the road and went a little bit quickly around the corner, might run the risk of a difficulty with the pavement. But if it's a shuttle driver who knows the route intimately, and that is their living, they are not going to put their living at risk. Leaving to one side, of course, they're not going to put anyone else's safety at risk. So it would actually be better than the current position where there is no such service, when you have experienced professional drivers taking that load away from and taking that possibility of strife away from the local residents. This is another issue has been raised, that the local residents don't want this to become the haven for problem drinkers. And of course, having an experienced professional premises supervisor negates that. The license conditions you will impose will prevent that. And if that doesn't come about and things are operated in a way that is feared by the local residents, you will revoke the license, because that's classic review territory, as you know, and as your legal advisor will remind you. But given the amount of money and the amount of care that is being put into this application, you can safely ignore that as a possibility. And as you have seen and I'm not going to rehash every bit, Lucy Whittington has already in place in her mind and will put into force an employee carrying out a regular sweep of the beach, including bits that have absolutely nothing to do with the premises. So the beach will be cleaner than it currently is, not worse off. And the Bay Cafe will not sell off sales in glass, ever. Everything that goes off sale will be in a sealed container and or a non-vitreous container. And really the only off sale they have in mind is, for instance, if it was a wedding reception and the bride and groom wanted some photographs with the beautiful backdrop on the beach, they might want a glass of Bucks Fizz while they do that. That's the level of off sale that is being considered, not acting as the local convenience store for problem drinkers. So whilst every one of the objections is valid in isolation, none in fact will bite with this application, and any that might have done, well, the conditions that have already been agreed, that the police wanted, and that the applicant has said absolutely, immediately, will be in place to prevent. So whilst, let's say, objectors are entitled to want the status quo, that is what we're applying for. Anything else, I think, is covered by the very full and helpful report from your own licensing officer. May we assist you with any questions? Oh, by the way, I should say in advance, when it comes to the premises, when it comes to the law and the application, I'm the subject matter expert. When it comes to the premises and its operation, those on either side of me are the subject matter experts, and I expect Lucy Whittington will be the one that answers any questions you might have.
I think in terms of adding kind of to what's already been said, for us, we want it to be a local community hub just as much as obviously when people from the mainland potentially come over. It isn't something that we want that we're going to exclude anyone or that nobody's going to be allowed to kind of obviously enter the premises. And I think that's such a big thing. I think with it being kind of obviously such a local community that actually are all really interested and invested, I guess, in the actual kind of the pier and what's happening to it, we want to be just as open with them with our plans. But it is a lot of money that we are investing as a company because we want it to be a focal point for people to come, enjoy, and to actually get that enjoyment out of the venue as much as we are enjoying currently setting it up. So we want to work with any objections that people might have. We don't want to work against anybody. So I think anything that is said, we obviously do want to take it on board, and we will try our hardest to kind of come up with solutions so that we can do it together and to keep the community involved.
Thank you. Could I just clarify why it is off sales are being sought? Because all I've heard is that provision was in the previous license and wedding guests might want a Bucks Fizz on the beach. Is that the business model as far as off sales are concerned?
In terms of the off sales, we aren't going for any different license that was currently there before. So we are literally seeking the exact same license. For off sales for us, it is so that obviously if something like an event was to happen, we have the flexibility, but that isn't something that necessarily will be something that happens every single day. And I think that's for some people, in terms of the license, I can understand obviously their concerns, but it's an offer that we want to be able to have if we do have events there. It's not necessarily something that actually will be our day-to-day business trade of the cafe. So it's actually having the option of being able to do it.
Essentially, it's aimed at people who have been using the cafe that wanted to take something out with them to enjoy what I think everyone accepts is a beautiful bit of the island. It's not neither the location nor the setup of the premises is conducive for somebody to travel there to buy alcohol and then go away, or to buy alcohol and then go out and consume it. It's like most licensed premises that you oversee, it's simply the capacity to say to somebody who said, look, we've just had a couple of drinks here, but it's such a lovely day. Can we take a glass of wine outside? That's the level of off sale, and that's it. It's not being set up to be a rival to any of the convenience stores with licenses anywhere in the island, let alone in the vicinity.
And one other question, thank you, Chair. Obviously, I get the concern with glass, which is expressed by the police in their submission. But I'm surprised to see that it's just simply being suggested that plastic be allowed. Would it not be better to have biodegradable, recyclable containers in an area such as this, rather than?
If I've opened an error, I'm about to be corrected from my right.
Yeah, hi, my name's Costas. It's exactly the avenue we're going to be taking, and in addition to biodegradable plastics, we've also mentioned that we'll be sweeping the beach, which is not just for any debris that's left by our guests, should that occur, but also to pick up any general general mess that's left by people using the beach. But we'll also, if we do use the off facility, we'll be taking the deposit. So say we haven't defined what that deposit value is, but if there is a cup and it will be a branded biodegradable cup, there'll be a deposit charge. So there'll be an incentive for that individual to bring that cup back. We're really hot on this. The one thing that we won't allow is for the off part of the license to be abused in any way, or for it to cause any issue to the residents or people enjoying the beach.
Thank you. Following on from what's just been said, it seems that it is this sort of off sale that seems to be the contentious area. Looking in the papers, there is a public space protection order that covers this area. Now, in my experience as a councillor, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding as to what powers the police actually have within a public space protection order. And it does not exclude people from quietly enjoying a drink. So how do you see that sitting? Because I was just a little bit surprised to see under the police conditions under Appendix 2 that there's actually no mention of the PSPA. Thank you.
This is actually covered in my summing up. The area does fall within a restricted area, but I do cover what a PSPO does.
Would be worth doing that now, just for people.
Yeah, I can do.
Yeah.
So a
Well, it's-
public
it's the next
space
item.
protection order
Yeah.
is in place in various locations across the island. Tottenham Bay along to the waterfront is covered, and I think it's Appendix 5 in your report. The plan actually shows where it's covered. So what that does is it gives the police powers, discretionary powers, that if someone is behaving in an antisocial way, they can ask for the surrender of the alcohol, or they can confiscate the alcohol. And if they refuse to do so, that is an offence. And as I say, that area is covered. So it doesn't stop people having a civilised drink, a glass of Bucks Fizz, as has been mentioned. But if there is antisocial behaviour, not even related to the premises, any sort of alcohol associated antisocial behaviour, those powers are in place.
Sorry, and just to add to that, I think it's my understanding that the police do actually have the powers of dispersal under a PSPO.
Once the behaviour reaches a certain level, that's correct as a matter of law, as I'm sure your legal advisor will tell you. But on the applicant side, our answer to your question would be that that is exactly the sort of clientele that is not expected, would not be welcomed, and that the applicant would do for independently of any local resident raising it. That's exactly the sort of thing that the applicant will have an eye out to prevent. And of course, the tightly controlled nature of the off sales envisaged, the single measures, the branded cut, the hour-long sweeps, will give you confidence that it can't arise. Things couldn't get to the point where the police powers would come into force because the applicant would have prevented that using their powers as the license holder.
So I'm well aware that our police resources are stretched. I'm glad to see that you've mentioned the value of the community aspect of it. So I would hope that there would be a proactive, there would be proactive action to engage positively with the local police to get that relationship going.
We will also be having our own security team. So in terms of that, as extra support for police, and depending on obviously if there was ever an issue to arise and the time it would take police to get there, we would also have our own security team that will be there and that can assist and that can help. So as an extra piece of backup to that, if there ever was a problem, we would have our support as well within the business.
No, I don't think so, Chair. I think we're clear.
So in relation to off sales, licensing officers will often recommend that applicants do include off sales in their applications so that if people go for a meal, they order a bottle of wine, there isn't the pressure on them to finish that wine. If they want to take it home with them, they can do. So we will quite often recommend that.
And just in relation to that, what, in giving such advice, let's say, what regard might or could be had to the fact that there is a PSPO in the area? Is that a relevant consideration when you give such advice?
No, because in order for those powers to be invoked, that individual would have to be behaving in an antisocial manner. And that is a decision that they make. Once away from the premises, they are no longer the responsibility of the operator.
Oh, sorry, not used to all this technology. Oh, right, yeah, my name's Heather Prowls. I've basically been asked by Bill Warbank and Madeline Sale to read out their objections. Is that okay? Right, this is Bill Warbank. I have no objection to an alcohol licence being awarded to the owners of the Bay Cafe. I do have an objection to the licence being able to offer off sales and the daily duration of the licence. It will benefit the community of Totland to have the Bay Cafe working again. The area would also benefit from opening the remainder of the building for community activities. The applicants themselves have suggested yoga classes could be held upstairs of the building. The cafe being able to serve drinks with meals would make it likely to become a real success and could only benefit the wider West White. An off-sales licence is completely inappropriate for a family beach like that of Totland. Despite any provision put in place by the cafe over its serving of alcohol, the proposal could easily encourage antisocial behaviour during the summer in the environs of the pier and beach. Outside the holiday season, an off licence could encourage problems throughout Totland. The daily duration of the licence from 9 is frankly bizarre. Does the applicant expect to serve ale to members of the yoga class as they cool down? I think it's been a bit funny there. It seems to be either a proposal expecting to be knocked back or an attempt to sell on the development to a third party with a precedent-setting alcohol licence already in place. Please award a licence to the Bay Cafe, allowing them to serve alcohol with meals eaten on the premises. This solution would be the most appropriate for Totland, in particular the West White as a whole. Madeline Sale has actually sent in two. She added a bit more to. I think you've had those, have you? Shall I read them out? Yeah, okay. Right, so her first objection was, I'm writing in relation to the premises licence application by Waldridge Group at the Bay Cafe Totland. I wish to object to this application. I believe an application for the sale of alcohol 7 days a week, 9 to 11, all year round, 4 hours per day, every day of the year should be refused. 14 hours a day, sorry, I misread that. I am aware that the applicant has agreed to accept the police conditions relating to the sale of alcohol via training, ID checks, CCT, etc. Nevertheless, the application should be rejected for the following reasons. Prevention of crime and disorder. The Police Conditions Act only as a deterrent to crime and antisocial behaviour, but cannot fully prevent it. The applicant has stated that any alcohol sold which would be removed from the premises will not be sold in glass containers. This means such alcohol will be sold in cans or plastic containers. These may then be left scattered along the length of Tottenham Bay, causing littering and pollution. I assume the CCTV will be installed in the immediate vicinity of the pier. It will therefore have no deterrent effect on disorderly behaviours over customers taking takeaway alcohol. This takeaway alcohol should then be consumed either all the way along this takeaway alcohol could then be consumed either all the way along Tottenham Bay and as far as Colwell Bay, and also on Stokes Green or Turf Walk. Antisocial behaviour is frequently associated with alcohol and may therefore arise in any of these locations. Second point is public safety. There are two main points here. Increase in traffic. The Bay Cafe is positioned at the bottom of a steep section of Madeira Road, just beyond Granville Road. The road is narrow and is very difficult for cars to pass. There is no pavement, there is no verge. It is overhung by trees and at night is extremely dark. Walking down this road is hazardous at the best of times, without increased traffic making the road extremely dangerous, particularly for families of young children. Lack of parking and shuttle service. I think this was before before you provided that information. There is very little limited parking by the Pier Cafe or along the front. The parking is chargeable. The applicant's statement says, guests will be directed to the nearest car parks facilities and we will arrange for collection and drop off in order to stop any potential congestion going down towards the Bay Cafe. There are no other car parks in the vicinity of Madeira Road other than those on the front. The only parking is on the roads around the area, which is already congested, particularly in the summer period. So this statement is misleading because it is not clear whether these car parks facilities, which the applicant refers to, she means where they are located. How will collection and drop off? How will collection and drop off will operate? This in itself will cause additional traffic, greater danger to the visitors to the bay if there is some form of shuttle service. The prevention of public nuisance. The Bay Cafe will have little or no control over actions of patrons using the takeaway drink service once they have left the immediate area around the cafe. Potential nuisance will include litter, congestion from cars, noise from the beachfront is currently audible along Granville Road and Cliff Road. This will become much worse, particularly in late evening, if the cafe is open for 14 hours a day and attracts a significant number of customers. Antisocial behaviour. This is not unusual in situations where alcohol is consumed. Retention of Tottenham Bay as a family resort and prevention of harm to children. In the late 90s and noughties, the pier provided a useful and popular service, cafe plus a kiosk selling ice creams, fish and chips and beach equipment. This amenity has been missed and would be welcomed if it were returned. The application for the Bay Cafe to be licensed for the sale of alcohol for 14 hours a day is not compatible with Tottenham Bay as a family resort. I understand the Licensing Act refers not only to physical harm, but should be interpreted in the widest possible sense when granting an application. Furthermore, there are dangers associated with increased traffic as described above. Further observations regarding their statement. The application has been made by Waldridge Group. They have said in their statement, being seasoned hospitality experts, we are well versed in the importance of abiding by the regulations put in place within our licence. I have looked at their website, waldridgegroup.co.uk, but this describes their activities as demolition, groundworks, ecotech, road sweepers and development. There is no mention of hospitality, which is somewhat at odds with their statement above, and certainly not part of their core expertise. Is it possible that they are seeking a premises licence so that they can develop the pier for resale? A licence to sell alcohol 14 hours per day might make it a more marketable prospect. The statement refers to internal discussions about the cafe and how best it can benefit the local community. As far as I am aware, there have been no discussions within the local with the local community. Surely this should have been a first step. They state that they are applying for a license to sell sales from 9 to 11 for flexibility. At present, the Bay Cafe is permanently closed and has been for the last year or so. They have also publicly stated that they intend to submit an application for planning permission to turn the shore end of the pier, where the cafe is currently located, into hotel rooms. That's obviously been changed now. I'm not sure how selling alcohol from 9 AM fits with yoga groups and schools, or indeed turning the cafe into hotel rooms, but the degree of flexibility they are seeking suggests that they have no clear strategy for this development. This gives rise to a far more uncertainty about how and if the police conditions will be adhered to. Right, the next one. This one's not quite so long. So this is Madeline Sir's second comments. I don't know. Shall I read it and we'll find out? I carry on. Application for premises license, Bay Cafe, Tottenham Pier, Madeira Lane. I would like to expand on my objection to the license application by Waldridge Partnership Group. Unfortunately, the applicant has not engaged with the local community regarding their plans for the pier, nor has the cafe been open for business since 2021. Had local residents been invited to the launch event in October, this may have allayed fears and reassured those most likely to be affected by the venture. Although I'm happy with the granting of a license for selling alcohol on the premises, I object to the applicant being granted a license to sell alcohol off the premises because this gives rise to a number of issues. I would also request that any license granted is for shorter hours. The waterfront has licensing from 10:30, which seems more appropriate. My objection relates to two criteria. First, public safety. There will be a significant increase in traffic and there is limited parking in the vicinity, specifically in the immediate area around the Bay Cafe. The Bay Cafe is positioned at the bottom of a steep section of Madeira Road, just beyond Granville Road. The road is narrow and difficult for cars to pass. There is no pavement and no verge. It is overhung by trees and at night is extremely dark. Walking down this road is hazardous at the best of times without increased traffic, making the road more dangerous, particularly for families with young children who typically park on nearby roads and walk down Madeira Road to get to the beach. The applicant's statement says, and I quote, "Guests will be directed to the nearest car parks facilities and we will arrange for collection and drop off in order to stop any potential congestion going down towards the Pier Cafe." However, there are no car parks in the vicinity of Madeira Road. The only parking is on the roads along the cliff top, which are already congested, particularly in summer. The applicant has now provided further information regarding the proposed pick-up and drop-off service, but it is clear from the fact that the applicant is currently putting together a traffic management plan offering shuttles from around the island for people coming in by ferry and building relationships with local taxi firms, but they are expecting to attract a large volume of customers, far greater than the numbers previously catered for. This does not allay my fears because it can be seen that there is limited turning space for a shuttle vehicle by the pier head. There is only one way up and down from the beach, and because the public toilets are close to this area where vehicles will have to turn, it will be a high-risk area for families with children. The clear intention seems to be to make the Bay Cafe and the pier a destination rather than an amenity. I am concerned that these problems will only get worse if and when the Waldridge Partnership apply for a licence for a restaurant at the far end of the pier, which appears to be suggested by local press and the Seasons website. There is a second point in relation to public safety, allowing off sales of alcohol to individuals who may subsequently swim or take part in boating or other water sports is not sensible. Somebody does not need to be obviously intoxicated for alcohol to impair their judgment whilst in or next to open water. There has been no mention of this in the application. Secondly, the prevention of public nuisance. The Bay Cafe will have little or no control over the actions of patrons using takeaway drinks service once they have left the immediate area surrounding the cafe. Potential nuisance will include litter, which is already a serious problem in the summer with overflowing rubbish bins, congestion from cars, and the possible dangers outlined previously. Noise. Noise from the beachfront is currently clearly audible along Granville Road and along Cliff Road. This will become much worse, particularly in the late evening, if the cafe is granted a licence for off sales and attracts a large number of customers the Waldridge Partnership clearly expect, given their comments regarding provision of a shuttle service and taxis. Antisocial behaviour, which is not unusual in situations where alcohol is consumed, is also a concern. Excuse me. In summary, I believe any licence granted should be for on-premises sale only. This is in line with the conditions for both the hut and the waterfront, the two nearby restaurants. I understand that the hut's conditions state alcoholic drinks shall predominantly be served for consumption by customers seated at tables. I would like to request the same conditions are required at the Bay Cafe. One final point, the applicant's response to further clarification on off sales was that the previous licence at the pier allowed this. However, I don't believe this is actually correct. That's where she is. And that's it.
Chairman, may I have a word? Thank you. My name is Ken Ratcliffe. I submitted an objection quite an early stage. First of all, I'd like to say, if I may, to thank the council for the courteous manner in which my correspondence was responded to and how I've been kept informed, and also my thanks to the applicant for, again, responding to various concerns I've had. I think the lack of engagement with the local community was probably a bit of a failure, but apart from that, I certainly thank them for the degree of information that they've provided. Just to take, I know that my objection's been submitted and therefore you're aware of it. It distills to the need for an off-sales licence. The representative of the applicant did refer to the probation's view of past performance and so on, but of course an investment manager's view of past performance is that there is no guide to future performance in that. And what I take up on that point is that we have basically a failed venture in the cafe because it didn't last very long. It was a successful community-based cafe at one point. Once it moved into the commercial environment, it didn't seem to be particularly successful. And I would wonder whether during their acquisition due diligence, the applicant looked at the relative value of off-license sales in the profitability of the, or otherwise, of the venture that was there. And if they did, whether that had any influence on them applying for a license that included off sales, because quite frankly, at the moment, you've got a situation where we're told £2 million has been invested. So there's the intention of upgrading everything emotionally. Hopefully from their perspective, it's going to be a successful venture. From the Tottenham Bay's point of view, we hope it's going to be a successful venture. But the indications are that off-license element is probably marginal, possibly irrelevant, and may even distill down to simply the odd glass of champagne on the beach. So my request is that the committee look at that as they are obliged to do, and will do, I'm absolutely certain, look at the objectives of the Licensing Act and see whether just by simply denying that aspect of the licence that you can, at a stroke, prevent public nuisance or the potential for public nuisance.
Just ask you to repeat what particular aspects you're referring to.
The off-sales, off-sales, licensing the off-sales element. Being able to purchase alcohol,
Yeah.
take it away, and therefore provide the possibility and potential for public nuisance. In areas that surround it, which are Stokes Green, Perth Walk, the promenade, all of which I appreciate can be policed, but they are difficult to police. Police can't just drift by, just have a presence and so on. So I would invite the committee really to say, well, in accordance with the Licensing Act objectives, I can just remove the potential for some crime, disorder and public nuisance by simply denying that part of the application. Thank you very much.
In the, sorry, in the background on on page 7, it says the main off-site sales will be consumed on surrounding beachfront or through the venue on the connected pier. So that, oh, sorry, yeah. So from the plan that was sent, surely the pier would, the actual pier would be covered by the actual seating area anyway, wouldn't it? Why would you need off sales there?
I think there are 3 people surrounding me who are itching to answer that question, but the short answer is, it is, before, again, greater detail if required, is, well, that shows the level of care that has been employed in this application, because it notes not covered by the seating inside, and you have the plans, and I'm not going to take you through every corner of those. The point is that, I suppose, the difference between a talented amateur in the previous regime and the professionals that are seeking this application today is belt and braces, not covered, or even might not be covered, therefore off sales to cover it, because that definitely does cover it. But looking at the plan, the license, the seating area, it is internal to the building, so the pier is off sales, but of course it's the least off of all possible off sales, since it's still part of the land owned by the applicant.
So therefore, is an off sales license required for that area?
It is just so that we are completely covered. So the pier is covered, the building is covered, and also if and when, for instance, somebody does have an event or has a wedding and they would like to go out the front and have a drink on the beachfront, we want to make sure that we have covered every single element and we haven't kind of left ourselves shy or something. If somebody did want to go out onto the pier, if somebody obviously wants to drink inside the building, or if somebody wants to drink on the beachfront to have the off-sale license, it's all part of how we can hopefully make the Bay Cafe successful and how we can keep it running and how we can actually continue to reinvest back into the pier and to hopefully keep it going, so that obviously everything in terms of what we can actually sell, we know that we're covered by a license and that we aren't breaking any rules or regulations that are put in place. And also by having it covered, we then have everything that we want to do in terms of our litter sweeps and making sure that our security are aware and making sure that actually we have covered all of those bases, rather than if we don't have an off-sale license, in terms of our security team and our staffing, it's then very difficult to allocate that resource to go out and to sweep the beaches and to make sure that security are there in the lapse of police getting there in time if there is an incident. We just want to make sure that everything was covered in the on and off sale part of the license for us.
So, sorry.
What you're trying to tell us, I hope, is that you're saying if you do not have a license for that area, you effectively have no legal responsibility for it. But if you've got a license, you are legally responsible for it. Is that what you're trying to say?
So yes, to summarise my client, because
Yeah,
she's the
sorry.
detail, I'm
No
a
problem.
big hand, small map bit of this. No off sales licence, no responsibility for anything outside the four walls. Even though the CCTV as planned for covers it hugely, even though the plans are for, I say, off sales as an afterthought, as very much a secondary or tertiary part of the business. It's not part of the business model. Not a single off sale in a year, but with the license allowing it, will not affect the profitability. It's not success is not predicated on a single glass of wine going out in a biodegradable container. But without the off sales part, you lose the litter sweep. You've heard litter is an existing problem. We don't have a license, so one party that can't be blamed is the applicant. But that problem suddenly gets better because with an off sales license, you'll have those hourly sweeps. And in terms of the SIA trained security team, they again prevent ever getting to the point of the police PSPO powers coming into effect, so long as there's an off license allowed. But without that, it's the four walls and somebody who somebody who'd be caught by the applicant's procedures and things in place, even though they haven't actually bought any alcohol on or off the premises, would be caught if off sales are allowed. Of course, it's somebody else's problem. If you were to strike that condition that pre-existed from the last one, is entirely normal, as you've heard. It is the view of your licensing officer that it promotes the licensing objectives to allow an off sales license in these circumstances. That's why.
So does that mean that I'm given to understand that they'll only be selling off sales to people who are actually eating there or using the facilities and not walk-ins?
That's how I understand it. I'm sure they're not going to offer act as a off license, which is, I think, is what people are scared of. Yes. Yeah.
Hi, it's sorry, if I could just jump in. May be useful, may not be useful. There's been a mention of the investment that we're putting into the pier. The £2 million is an additional investment on top of the millions, the purchase price of the pier is. So for us, this is a £6.5 to £7 million investment. What we're trying to create here is something absolutely spectacular, not just for the Woolwich Group and Seasons, the brand that it sits under, but something that will make a statement nationally and we hope internationally. What we're definitely not trying to do is attract people who want to take a 4-pack of Guinness or whatever the drink is to the beach and drink. That's not what we're about. What we're about is creating something truly spectacular. And it is, as you've rightly said, sorry, as the gentleman rightly said, it is a bet. Every investment is a bet, but we believe so strongly in what this proposition has to offer that we're going to guard every aspect of it to ensure that it delivers nothing but spectacular results for us and for the island.
Does that clarify?
It's no relevant authorities here, Chairman, so we can progress.
Well, I think we've had the opportunity, we've submitted objections, we've had the opportunity to discuss it here, and various elements of it have been rebuffed to some extent. It's, I think, in summary, I think we would say it does come down to an assessment of need and whether the very marginal element that we regard as being a benefit to that part of the licence outweighs the objective, the risk to the objective of the Licensing Act over public nuisance and crime and disorder. So thank you, we've had the opportunity, but in summary, over to you. Thank you.
The licensing officer.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, yeah.
greater length than you wanted to. One thing, just perhaps, may not be something that's occupying mind or not. The Wooldridge Partnership, the applicant, is an entirely is a subsidiary of the Wooldridge Group. None of the people around me are digger drivers or big dumping truck operatives. The Wooldridge Partnership does hospitality. It's therefore separate from, but a subsidiary of the Wooldridge Group that digs things up and blows things up and transports them in big trucks. In case that was something that was occupying you about the experience and things, because it was a point raised. In summary, you have the application. None of the statutory objectors or potential objectors have objected. The police wanted conditions and those have already been adopted. So there's no tension between what the police required and what the applicant has said they will do. It is the same license as before, and as you've heard, it's the view of your own licensing team that the off license would be of assistance in promotion of the licensing objectives, which of course are the 4 yardsticks that you will decide upon. The applicant has proved to you in this hearing how proactive it is. Ms. Whittington, not me. You've heard about what will happen if the off-sales is granted and what will happen or won't happen if it isn't granted. And you've heard confirmation that off-sales is such a small part of what's envisaged. It's events that's envisaged, and that takes it at a stroke out of the economic grasp of the problem drinkers. Because what they want is cheap alcohol, lots of it, and somewhere to sit and drink it whilst ruining other people's day. Not being flippant about the last bit, but without worrying about ruining other people's day. That is the diametric opposite of the business model that is being put forward to you today. In terms of the traffic, there is of course the car park on the dock that I suspect you will know about. It's that sort of thing that's being envisaged, and from further, but it's the shuttles that remove at a stroke the worries about traffic for the reasons that I've already addressed you about. In terms of worries about being so successful that it creates a noise problem, well, of course, the size of the building is a limit, and if there was an issue with that, then one of the statutory bodies, the Fire and Rescue Service, always gets terribly excited about size of building and number of users, and they are not excited about this application. So you know that that stops being an issue at a stroke. Could have been valid to raise perhaps, but not on the facts. In terms of something I don't think I did raise, but is obvious, I hope, is that this venture is going to need staff, and that staff is all going to be local, not going to be people bussing in from who knows where overnight to work and going back again. It's the local area that will benefit by having a route into a career in hospitality that Ms. Whittington had, of course, because there's going to be somebody pot bashing in the kitchens and one day sitting before your successors saying, I'm the designated premises supervisor. So there is a local benefit there that hasn't perhaps been touched on by me and I should have done. And finally, you have at this hearing had proof from Ms. Whittington and the others representing the applicant that they have listened and will continue to listen to anybody with a valid point of view, and they will do everything in their power to make this a successful venture. And that requires them to be adhering to the 4 licensing objectives, because otherwise they will have problems that will affect them. It's a good application, my respectful submission. It's a good applicant and will be of benefit to everybody. Unless I can assist you further, those are my closing remarks.
You've now heard from all parties. Some of the elements of the representations that have been read out have previously been redacted as matters that cannot be taken into account when determining the application. Concerns have been raised that the grant of a licence will lead to an increase in antisocial and criminal behaviour and nuisance in the form of litter and noise. It will be for members to decide if these are likely outcomes of the grant of a premises licence. Members are reminded that the behaviour of people outside the immediate vicinity of any licensed premises cannot be attributed to the management of the premises. Section 182 guidance to the Licensing Act states, beyond the immediate area surrounding the premises, these are matters for the personal responsibility of individuals under the law. An individual who engages in antisocial behaviour is accountable in their own right. However, as you have heard from the applicant, they are investing a significant amount in CCTV systems, which are likely to benefit the entire community. In relation to concerns raised over alcohol-associated antisocial behaviour, public space protection orders provide the police with discretionary powers to require alcohol to be surrendered and to confiscate alcohol where necessary. A person commits an offence if they refuse to do so, and the area to which this application relates is covered by a PSPO, and these powers apply. In addition, conditions recommended by the police and agreed by the applicant prevent customers of the premises removing any drinks in glass containers. The applicant also states that hourly litter picks will be conducted by staff. Both the Environmental Health Department and the police were asked about any nuisance complaints made in relation to activities that have previously taken place on the premises and in the vicinity of the premises under the earlier licence. The police have confirmed that there have been 2 incidents in the past 12 months, one relating to the building to which this application relates, whereby youths have attempted to gain entry to the empty building, causing minor damage. They have confirmed that there have been no reports of drunken antisocial behaviour. The Environmental Health Department have confirmed that there have been no nuisance complaints made to them resulting from sales of alcohol that took place previously at the premises. It should also be noted that there is another licensed premises in close proximity to the pier. The waterfront has a large garden and has a license to supply alcohol for consumption on and off the premises until midnight, which is an hour later than is being applied for here. The premises is also able to provide regulated entertainment until midnight. The existence of this business and its daily operations have not resulted in any of the issues that have been raised by the objectors as potential consequences to the grant of a licence. I would reiterate that this premises has previously been granted a licence for on and off sales. Should a licence be granted today and evidence obtained to suggest that one or more of the licensing objectives are being undermined, the Licensing Act contains provisions whereby an interested party or other person can apply for a review of the licence at any time. The subcommittee must have regard to all of the representations made and the evidence heard, as well as the national guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 and the Council's own statement of licensing policy. The authority's determination should be evidence-based, justified as being appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives and proportionate to what it is intended to achieve. It therefore remains the recommendation of the Licensing Department that a licence should be granted subject to the conditions already agreed with the police. Thank you.
Okay, well, you'll be pleased to know we came to a decision after a lot of chatting and what ifing. And I'll hand you over to our legal officer who will explain. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a decision of the licensing subcommittee on Monday, the 6th of November 2023, in respect of an application for a premises licence for the Bay Cafe, Madeira Road, Totland, before councillors Ian Ward, Debbie Andre and Jonathan Bacon. Upon receiving the report of the licensing section, oral and or written evidence from the applicant, responsible authorities and other persons, and having regard to the guidance issued under section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 and the council's and the Isle of Wight Council's statement of licensing policy, the subcommittee hereby grants the licence in accordance with the application, subject to those conditions proposed by the applicant within the operating schedule, and also subject to the mandatory conditions specified in the Licensing Act 2003. And those conditions agreed with the police at Appendix 2 to the report, but modified to such an extent as members have considered appropriate for the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives, namely by requiring an amendment to condition 7 of those conditions agreed with the police on page 48 of the report, so as to read: Condition 7, no person will be permitted to take or remove alcoholic or other drinks from the premises in glass containers. All drinks must be transferred to biodegradable and or recyclable vessels before being removed from the premises. The variation is made as per the reasons given within the same report in order to promote the licensing objectives, the prevention of crime and disorder, and the prevention of public nuisance. Protection of the public nuisance, and in accordance with the Isle of Wight Council's statement of licensing policy and the section 182 guidance. In reaching the above decision, the subcommittee have had regard to the Human Rights Act 1998, and in particular Article 1 of the First Protocol, Article 8 and Article 6. The subcommittee consider this decision as proportionate and appropriate for the promotion for licensing objectives under the Licensing Act 2003. There is a right of appeal to the Magistrates' Court if anyone is dissatisfied with this decision, and any appeal must be made within 21 days of the date of notification. And that being your decision, Chairman, I will ask you to sign that. But before I do so, I note that the subcommittee have added an advisory to the decision. The subcommittee wish to advise those objectors present that their decision is based upon the evidence before them today. At any stage following the grant of this premises licence, if the operation of the licence causes you concerns, including operation outside of that envisaged here today, you may ask the licensing authority to review the licence because of a matter arising at the premises in connection with any of the 4 licensing objectives. And that being your decision, Chairman, I'll ask you to sign that. Thank you. Chairman.
Thank you all very much for attending. I hope we've done you a reasonable service, if not a good one. Okay, goodbye. Have a good day.